Welcome you all on behalf of Brahma Kumari Center. It's our real pleasure to have you all here. We are having a talk on a very special topic. The topic is magnetic mind. And to talk about it, we have a very special guest who has traveled all the way from Australia. He is practicing Rajyoga for 14 years. And she works in the field of technology marketing. And she has experience of conducting so many workshops and lectures. She will share her wisdom with us here today. Thank you.
Thank you. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm not very good at projecting my voice, so hopefully you can hear me. If you can't, please let me know. Okay. And also, I'm going to be speaking in English. I know that a lot of you may speak French, so if you don't understand, if you need me to speak slower, please let me know as well. Okay. How am I going so far? Okay. All right. Okay.
So just also to remind that, so this time is translating everything.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. So so this topic of the magnetic mind. So I have a few slides that I'm going to use as prompts to kind of discuss this topic with you. But first, a little bit of context about this title of the magnetic mind. So I'm aware that it is a topic that is quite attractive to people. And where it comes from actually is probably going back nearly about, I'd say, 8 to 10 years ago. So in Australia, where I live, we have 3 retreat centres. And there's another soul who lives in Melbourne. So I live in Sydney, and this brother, he lives in Melbourne. And from time to time, we would, do retreats together. We would kind of facilitate retreats together. And we became quite good friends. So occasionally, maybe once or twice a year, we would just talk on the phone, basically to catch up with each other and see what was happening in each other's lives. And on this particular phone conversation that we had, after not speaking for quite a while, his name was Tim. And so Tim, he related that he had just had a car accident and his car was written off. Right? So it was completely damaged and it was written off. Thankfully, he was okay, but he was sharing his experience and how it affected him. And round about the same time, I was having some challenging relationships at work. I was facing some challenging relationships at work. So we were just kind of talking about these things that were happening in our lives. And then Tim said, what's the likelihood that these events in our lives were actually happening because we drew them to us? Yeah, so something about how I was thinking and something about how Tim was thinking and where our headspace was, it magnetized or it drew these events into our lives. So what do you think? Yes? Okay, so if your answer is yes, that's right, then I don't have any convincing to do because we're all on the same page.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think
this accident happened because we attracted this, or how do you explain that?
Yeah, so
Between
that's
the mind and the accident happened.
yeah. So the question for those online is the question in the room is, did the accident happen because he drew that to himself? Did Tim draw the accident to himself? So and I guess I can't answer that question for Tim, but in the course of our conversation, the reason why we kind of discussed this as a topic was because we both felt that our internal stage, like our internal presence of mind and our internal awareness,
Something unconscious.
But also at the time we were going through an emotional upheaval, right? So individually, both of us were not in a very stable state of mind. And how that manifests was different for Tim and different for me. So it's not that there's a direct correlation between my not thinking in a positive or stable way and that resulting in an accident. But when things happen in our lives that are topsy-turvy, right, for want of a better word, often, if I'm honest, I can trace it back to my state of being. Right? So as a result of that conversation, we would, occasionally facilitate retreats together at one of the retreat centers in Australia. So we said, okay, what's the learning that we can take from this exchange that we've just had? And that's where the title, The Magnetic Mind, came from, basically. So we then subsequently conducted this as a retreat a few times now. And I just wanted to give you the background as to where that title comes from, because it came from our own experience, basically. And I gather from your responses as we start our discussion today that you have also had similar experiences, right? So the important ingredient is for me to be honest within myself, to be able to recognize that when things are happening in my life. Because if I'm not honest, then oftentimes I can be in a state of denial, right? And if I'm in a state of denial, then the likelihood is that I look to blame others and circumstances and things outside of myself, right? But if you have done the Raj Yoga course and you've, had the lesson on karma philosophy, then you will understand that one of the main takeaways from the lesson of karma is personal responsibility. Yeah. So it's only when I take responsibility for my life and my thinking and my state of being, that's when I have the power to change things. So let's look at the next slide. Okay, so when we decided to go with this title of The Magnetic Mind, a lot of people who came to the Magnetic Mind retreat came with this expectation. Right? So how many of you are familiar with the movie The Secret, or the book The Secret? So round about the early 2000s, this book, which then was made into a movie, came out, which was called The Secret. And The Secret was all about the law of attraction and, using the power of your thoughts to manifest what you want in your life. So as you can see in this image, a lot of people, when they hear the title, The Magnetic Mind, have this kind of expectation that I can use the power of my mind to attract into my life all these material things, right? Whether it is, the mansion, a flashy car, the diamond ring, an abundance of wealth, all of those things, basically. So the reason I put this here as part of the presentation is to acknowledge that the principle, the underlying principle of the law of attraction that is at work here is the same principle that we study in spiritual knowledge as well, right? But how I use that energy is what makes the difference, basically. Yeah? Because as most of us realize at some point in our lives, no amount of material things can fill the emptiness that we feel inside. Yeah, if there is an absence of love, if there's an absence of peace, if there's an absence of power, if there's an absence of happiness, because material things are temporary. Yeah, they're temporary, they're perishable, right? So if I have that brand new house, whilst it's new and shiny and and comfortable, then I feel good. But once it starts to age and once it starts to decay, then I'm looking for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, right? So I don't know about you, but one of the main things that I've learned from the study of Raj Yoga is that everything that I truly need is already inside me. Yeah, so the difference is not what I want, but what I need. Because our wants can be many. We can have many wants. We can have, we may want a handbag, nice shoes, nice watch, all of those things. But that list of things that we want can keep growing. But ultimately, why do we want that handbag? Why do we want that watch? Why do we want the nice shoes? Because what are we seeking? We're seeking happiness, right? But that happiness that we get through any material source is only going to be temporary. Yeah. So the shortcut that spirituality teaches us is to go within, to look within, to realize that true happiness and true love and true peace are already there within himself. Yeah. So that's what this image illustrates. So if we go to the next slide. So this is probably one of the main things which I would suggest is the key takeaways from tonight's discussion, right? So if I take away one thing from everything that we're going to touch on today, I would say it's this, and that is that I will attract into my life what I am, not what I want. Yeah. So, and this is where the aspect of honesty comes in, which I mentioned earlier on, because for me to truly understand what I am and who I am and how I am, I have to have that honest reflection of the self, right? Which means my focus is less on the external and I'm spending some time looking within. to know who I am. And when I know who I am, then I can check, do I like who I am? Right? If I am, so do I like who I am? Yeah, so what would it take for me to like who I am? How do I want to be? Right? Because that energy that I'm holding inside is basically what is drawing into my life, what is unfolding outside. Yeah. So oftentimes we don't like to think that that's the reality, because what goes hand in hand with recognizing this or accepting this is responsibility. Right? Because if I accept that what I'm drawing into my life, whether it was that accident, whether it was the broken relationship, whether it was, the failure of the project at work, whatever the circumstance is, if I'm not able to accept that my inner state contributed to that external reality, then I'm never going to be able to change the external reality. So, because I'm waiting for you to change. Yeah. So I'm waiting for you to change for things to get fixed. I'm waiting for you to change for the project to be successful. But if I accept that I have that responsibility, and what I'm drawing into my life, whatever that may be, whether it's at a mental, emotional, or physical level, whatever I'm drawing into my life is a reflection of what I am and not what I want, right? Because we're more accustomed to knowing what it is we want, right? If I say to you, what do you want in life for you to feel happy? You can draw up a long list. Right? But this state of consciousness and the state of energy that I need to be vibrating at to enable those good things to come in my life, I have to take responsibility for that. Right? So this is the real equation of the magnetic moment. What I'm drawing is not what I want, but rather what I am. So we look at the next slide. So I am. These are two of the most powerful words, because what I put after I am is going to shape my reality. Right? So if I say I am a sweet person, then I'm creating that reality. If I say I am fearful, then that is going to manifest as my reality. Right? If I say I am not good enough, then that will be my reality. Right? I can read all the self-help books, I can listen to all the motivational talks, but if in here I haven't actually done that work to change what I put after I am and have the conviction that that is true, then my reality is not going to change. Right? So it's not just about repeating it like a mantra and saying, I am courageous, I am fearless, but I really have to have that faith and conviction that goes along with it. Yeah. And where does that come from? So, we're talking about it as if it's easy to do, but if it was easy, we would have all done it by now. Right? So we know that, it's not just about saying that to my own mind, but also I have to deal with the habits that I have developed over a long period of time. Even the way that I think about myself is a pattern of thinking. Mm-hmm. And that pattern of thinking, which, we sometimes describe it as the sanskars that the soul carries. So sanskars are like these deep-rooted traits that are recorded in our subconscious. So if my conscious mind is saying I am courageous, but the subconscious recording based on my past experiences are actually going against that, then it requires a lot of energy for me to override that subconscious recording, right? And where does that energy come from? It comes from the soul. It comes from the soul when the soul is empowered through meditation, right? So why do I have yoga? Why do I have that connection with the divine, with the supreme soul? To fill myself with power. So one is a cognitive exercise. When I'm just saying, I am a powerful soul, I am a positive soul, I am a courageous soul. That's an intellectual exercise. I'm starting to train my mind to think in that positive way. But together with that, I need to have that injection of power from a higher source, which really seals that as my reality. Right? Because otherwise, the effect of just repeating it like a mantra will be temporary. Yeah. So that's what I've learned, or that's been my experience. So if you take a moment now to just reflect in your own mind, what do you put after I am?
I am a peaceful soul.
You're a peaceful soul, okay.
I'm connected to God.
I'm connected to God, okay. These are all the nice and wonderful things that we want to think. But in our private lives, right? So when we're not in a gathering, and when we're not in a setting like this, when we're just left with our own thoughts, what can come up when you think, I am nervous, or I am anxious, or the reason I said I am not good enough is because I think that is the reality that a lot of us experience. Yeah. So it's like that lack of self-respect, that lack of self-worth that we have. So you might have a lot going for you on the physical level. You might be the CEO of a company, you might be a doctor, you might be a president, you might be a multimillionaire, all of those things. But despite that, you can still feel empty inside. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and when you do the Raj Yoga course, you understand the journey of the soul through time, and that gives us a lot of insights and a lot of context as to why we've reached this point where we feel that way. Yeah. How many of you completed the Raj Yoga course? Okay, so there are some of you who are brand new and maybe not done the Raj Yoga course. So if you haven't done the Raj Yoga course, it's an opportunity for you to learn about yourself, right? Because it talks about the identity of the self as a soul. And as I said, also as part of the course, you learn about the journey of the soul through time. So when I say, if the the kind of dominant energy in the world today is most of us wandering around feeling that we're not good enough, then that manifests in all the conflicts that we experience in our lives, right? Whether it's in our personal lives, whether it's at the level of countries as well. It's all a manifestation of what's happening in this space. So what's happening in here is shaping the reality out there, not the other way around. So it's not because you said something to me with an angry tone that I am feeling the way that I am. Right? Because, and the proof of that is two people can be in the same situation and their response to that situation can be very different. Right? So you might shout at me with an angry tone, and I might fall down in a heap of tears, and you might say, oh, so what, and move on to your next activity without a care in the world, in one ear and out the other. Have you observed that in life?
Yes.
Yeah. So same situation, same circumstance, but different responses because of who I am. So who I am and who you are, right, determined the response in that situation. So this is essential, and it has all to do with the conversation that I'm having with myself. Yeah. Do you talk to yourself?
Yes.
Yes. So are we crazy to be talking to ourselves?
No.
No. It's necessary for us to talk to ourselves. Right? We have a lot of conversations with other people. We have a lot of conversations on social media. We have a lot of conversations that are externally focused. But if I am having conversations with myself, then I would say it's a pretty safe bet that those conversations are not very healthy for most of us, right? Because we're stuck in this loop of thinking we're not good enough, we're not brave enough, we're not successful enough. Is that fair to say? Yeah. Anyone who's on the opposite end of that trend? If you are, then I will give up my seat to you. So we're kind of all in the same boat in that we're all practicing to be better at who we want to be. Yeah. And the beauty of understanding the soul as we study it in the knowledge of Raj Yoga is that our highest self is where we begin our journey. Right? So in a way, why we are drawn to spirituality is because we are searching to return to that highest self. Right? So we're being drawn by our own memory of our highest self. And that's why sometimes when we fall short of that highest self, we feel disappointed. Right? Because we know that we're capable of so much more. So we know internally, intrinsically, we know that peace, that love, that purity, that power is our true nature. That's why we're seeking it. Right? When you have an experience of anger, or if you have an experience of irritation, do you want to stay in that experience? No, you want to come out of that very quickly, right? You want to put it in the past and draw a line in the sand. But when you have an experience of peace, or when you have an experience of love, do you want to stay in that experience? Yes, you do. So that tells you, or that tells me, what my true nature is. What's my true nature and what's my acquired nature? So think about, I am and ... What am I filling in that ... So when I am talking to myself, I pay attention to how I converse with myself. Yeah. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so I am a living magnet. And so basically it's recognizing that key, right? So even if I'm holding something negative or weak, I am going to draw into my life energy that matches that vibration. Right? So that might be an unsavory truth, but it's the truth. Right? So it's like, why is this happening to me? I don't want this. So what did I do to cause this? Right? That's what I'm thinking. But subconsciously, stuff is happening, which is drawing them to me. So I am a living magnet. What I attract into my life is in harmony with my dominant thoughts. So what are my dominant thoughts? This is what I need to be aware of. Right? This is the stuff that's the record that is playing at a subconscious level, which I may not even be aware of until something happens. And then I reflect and say, okay, this was what I was thinking when this nasty episode happened. Yeah. So yeah, let's, try and have that awareness of what is the pattern of my dominant thoughts. Everyone understands what dominant thoughts are? Yes. So it's not just a fleeting thought, but it's the thought that is on repeat, basically. The record is going round and round and round. Okay, look at the next slide. So, what's the answer? I have to be the energy that I want to attract. So this is one of the paradoxes of spirituality. I've come to realize that on this spiritual path, there are many, many paradoxes. But one of them is that the thing that I want, I have to first be. Yeah, so I went through a period early in my spiritual life where I desperately wanted to experience love, right? Love from God. And that was the quest that I had. I was seeking that experience. And then I remember, going to Oxford, the retreat centre in Oxford in the UK, and had an opportunity to meet with Danny Janke. And I said to her, this is what I'm lacking. This is what I want to experience. And then, well, she said two things. One was, firstly, she said, make your intellect clean and clear. So that was one. So to remove the blocks or the things that prevent you from being open to receiving God's love, removing that pollution. And the other was to be love.
How did you remove those blocks during your experience?
Yeah, so the question is, how do you remove those blocks in the intellect? How do you make the intellect clean and clear? So the only way that I know through the study of Raj Yoga is, one, to fill the intellect with positive and uplifting thoughts every day. That's one, so that it gradually drowns out the negative and the weak thoughts. And the other is to have that connection with the Supreme Soul. So, and as I mentioned before, the reason that I want to have that connection with the divine is because the soul needs power. Right? So from everything, for making the right decisions, to making the right choices, to having clarity of thinking, the soul needs power, basically, right? So, and the way that the soul gets empowered is by connecting with that source of power. And that requires some effort, right? So it's not just something that I understand intellectually, but if I never actually make the time to practice it, then I'm not going to be able to fill myself with power. So, and that's just the principle of energy at work. Even with physical energy, we all know that, right? I mean, how many meals have you had today? 2.5 meals, right? So we don't just eat one meal at the start of the day and then keep this machine running for the remainder of the day. We have to keep refueling the body because we're spending energy. And so we need to replenish that energy, right? How many times have you charged your phone today? Twice. Right? So as we're using that energy, right? You're using it and you're spending that energy, so you have to recharge. So the soul is the same. The soul is energy. And the soul, the currency of soul energy is our thoughts, basically. So as we're thinking, we're and we're going to see in a minute the sequence of how this energy gets expressed, but everything starts with thoughts, and then it goes to our actions, and then we have the outcome of our actions. But as I'm spending this energy, I need to top it up as well, and that happens through the yoga process. So when Daddy Janki said to me, make your intellect clean and clear, the way that I understood how to do that is, one, to study regularly, to study spiritual knowledge regularly, because spiritual knowledge is basically feeding my mind and intellect with elevated thoughts. Right? So elevated thoughts are vibrating at this level. Ordinary thoughts are vibrating at this level. So you require this level of energy to be able to clean the intellect. Otherwise, if I'm just thinking ordinary thoughts, then I'm stuck in that groove, right? So it's the same old energy, basically. So I need to elevate my energy. So filling my mind and intellect with elevated thoughts and yoga power, connecting with the source to draw power into the soul, to be able to have that clarity. So, is this possible? Yes. Yeah. So one is, okay, it might make sense, but I also need to have that conviction that it is possible. Yeah. So I have to be the very energy that I want to attract.
What about the resistance?
Yeah. So resistance comes from our old habits, right? So, when you, I won't go too much into it, but when you study the knowledge of Raj Yoga, and it teaches you about the workings of the soul, And we understand that we have a mind, we have an intellect, and we have a subconscious mind. And the role of the intellect is to discern the thoughts created by the conscious mind. So if I'm trying to consciously create the thought, okay, I am a powerful soul, I'm a positive soul, because I've had the habit for a long time in the past of not being that, when that thought goes to the intellect is going to say, yes. It's not going to say yes. It's going to say, who are you kidding? Right? That's what the intellect is going to say. So this is where I have to really feed my intellect with that rich quality food, which is what spiritual knowledge is. So every day I'm instilling those elevated thoughts. And as I'm instilling those elevated thoughts, I will gradually develop the faith that, yes, that is who I am. So resistance is very much a reality, right? We all go through that process, but the only way that I can overcome that resistance is by empowering my intellect and helping my intellect to be patient. Yes, be patient, but also be determined. Yeah, be determined. Yeah. So I have to be determined to silence that negative voice in my mind. Yeah. So if we look at the next slide. So I was just talking about thoughts being the seed. So how the process works is that I don't just create the thought and then it manifests as an outcome or a result. So it, like when you read the law of attraction, for example, a lot of the books and videos that are out there about the law of attraction would suggest that you can just think something and it will materialize like that, right? And maybe if you are truly very powerful, that's possible. But in a practical sense, what happens is I first plant that seed, right? So I create the thought, and then what follows is the actions. So I have to actually follow through with that thought by starting to change my behavior. Yeah, so I can't just think, I'm a courageous soul, I'm a powerful soul, I'm a loving soul. But when I go out into the real world and people observe my actions, it's the opposite, right? Because then there is a disconnect between what I'm creating in here and how I'm expressing that. So my thoughts lead to actions, and repeated actions form habits. Yeah, so if I perform a particular type of action repeatedly, then that's going to create more habits, whether that's a good habit or a bad habit. And my habits shape my character. Yeah. And as is my character, so will be my destiny. Yeah. So I cannot change my destiny without changing my thoughts. Exactly. Yeah. So the question is, can I give an example of how I would do that in a more genuine way? So as in, like, it's not just theory, but yeah. Yeah, so if for example, I gave the example before of how I was craving love, right? So and then when I understood that I have to be love in order to receive love, then I had to change my thinking. my thoughts. So I can, create the thought that I am a loving soul, right? So that is my nature, that is who I am. And then I have to express that thought in my actions. So how do I express my loving nature in my behavior or my actions? So it doesn't have to be some grand gesture. It can just be, smiling at someone, or it can just be like supporting someone or a kind action, something like that, right? So it doesn't mean that I have to buy someone a Gucci bag to show that I love them. That's not what it is, right? So in my everyday life, I have to incorporate this the nature of love in my actions, right? So every opportunity that I have, whether it's with family, colleagues, all of that. And then as I start performing those actions, I'm starting to train my subconscious that this is who I truly am. It's no longer just an intellectual thought that I have to repeat like a mantra, but because I'm bringing it into action, I'm actually giving life to that thought, and so the habit gets formed. So smiling becomes more easy and natural. It's no longer something that I have to think about and put on a fake smile or a forced smile. So it just becomes part and parcel of who I am, and then it becomes my character, right? And then when it's my character, if my character is loving, then that determines my destiny. Right? And destiny is what comes back to us, basically. Yeah. So I'm radiating that energy of love, and therefore the living magnet is going to draw that back to itself. So really, the only thing that I need to pay attention to and take responsibility for is my thoughts. And then the rest kind of falls in place.
From thoughts to actions, it's not when I'm talking about myself, it's not a very difficult task to do. But from action to habit, it takes usually how much time does it take to for something to become a habit?
Yeah.
Because midway somewhere you tend to lose what do you say? The continuous effort.
Yeah.
In some way you sort of fall back.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And the thing that normally trips us up is actually our old habits. Right. So like instilling a good habit is not really the hard part. It's actually overcoming that resistance or the old habits. That's what requires effort, basically, right? It's like, so I want to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to have 20 minutes of meditation, right? So I want to create this habit because I realize meditation is valuable, it's beneficial. So I want to create this habit. But I don't go to sleep until 12 midnight. So that is also an old habit, right? So something has to give, right? So I have to be mindful of that and have that balance, basically. Because it's not, I won't be able to sustain that habit. So, and the way that habits work, obviously, is it's based on what I'm feeding. So when you start doing it, let's say I do it for 7 days and I start to see the benefits, I start to feel lighter, I start to feel more clear in my thinking, I start to feel more energized, whether it's meditation, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's eating healthy. There's a reason why it's said that humans are creatures of habit. Yeah, because once we put a habit in place, it's difficult to shift. But that's true of positive as well as negative habits. Yeah, so not all of our habits are negative. We also have some good habits. Okay. I mean, it's something as trivial as, which sock do you put on first? We have that groove recorded in our brain that, I'm going to put my right sock on before my left sock. So any questions about this? No? Okay, I'm asking the people in the room, but all right, so yes, I need to pay attention to my thoughts to change my destiny. and therefore, destiny is something that is in my hands, basically. Because sometimes this.
Actually, you could say if you want to go online, you can also ask questions by writing on the chat.
Okay, yes. So if those who are watching online, if you have any questions, you can type it in the chat, and then someone will read it out. Okay. All right. So next slide. All right. So now I've got a few quotes, which a handful of quotes that I put together, which are quotes that are out there that people have actually said based on their experience. So this particular one comes from Henry Ford. So everyone knows Henry Ford, yeah. So the inventor of the Ford motor car. So who can complete this? Perhaps you. Yeah, that's right. So whether you think you can or you think you can't. Yeah, that's right. So, Lewis, if you just hit if you just go enter.
Enter.
Yeah. Because I put an animation in the slide.
Oh, okay.
I hope it does.
Yes.
So whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. So that's how powerful the magnet of the mind is, basically. Which is why I have to change the seed, basically. So this is a quote by Henry Ford. And the next one. So this one is, again, a variation on the same theme, but our minds are a magnet. If I think of blessings, I attract blessings. If I think of problems, I attract problems. So, what's the solution? I need to always cultivate good thoughts and remain positive and optimistic. Yeah. So, we want blessings in our life. True? Yes. Is there anyone here who doesn't want blessings? No. So we all want blessings. But what we fail to realize is that we are the creator of that. Right? So if I am thinking those elevated thoughts, then I'm going to draw blessings in every shape and form into my life. Right? And the opposite is also true. If I'm thinking, how terrible this situation is, and how dreadful, how terrible, the language that we use, I have to change that as well. And then I will draw more of that into my life, basically. So, and the next one. So this one I especially like, because it comes back to that thing of personal responsibility, which I mentioned earlier, in the context of understanding karma philosophy. So the universe, so whether you say the universe or God, is not punishing you, it's not blessing you, it's not controlling you, The universe is responding to the vibrations I'm creating. So if I think happy, happiness will come to me. If I think negative thoughts, negativity will come to me. And what I'm putting out into the universe is going to come back to me like an echo. So life as I see it around me is a mirror. It's an echo of what I'm holding in here. So the beauty of that is that if I want to change that, all I need to do is change this. Right? And the reality is this is the only thing I have power over. I can't change you, I can't change you, I can't change you, I can't change the physical circumstances, I can't change the whatever is happening at work or in the family. I can only change myself, and that will create the ripple effect. Right? But we have been so programmed to instantly, our default setting is to blame. Yeah, if something's going wrong, who can I blame? Because when I blame, the perception is that I'm making you responsible, right? So you sort yourself out and then I'll be happy. But we know the reality. Right? Because then it becomes a tit for tat. It's like, okay, well, why should I be the one to sort myself out all the time? It's your turn. Right? So the next one. So I've got a couple of last slides, and this is based on the work of Dr. Emoto, which some of you may be familiar with. So if you're not familiar, he's a Japanese scientist who basically studied the effect of thoughts and thought vibrations and energy on water. So what you see here is basically, using these words, right, and the thoughts that are projected of that expression. The crystals that were formed when he froze the water. That's what you see here, basically. Right. So, and I'm sure that you've heard or read of similar studies, right? People have done these kinds of studies on water, which is a powerful carrier of thought vibrations, which is why, when we understand that a significant percentage of the human body is water. So if I'm thinking low vibration thoughts, if I'm thinking weak thoughts, negative thoughts, it has an effect on the body because it's being transmitted throughout the body through the water. So the water in my body is catching those vibrations and it's affecting the body. Yeah. So even when you drink water, it's good or it's beneficial to actually take a second to just send positive vibrations to the water before you consume it. Yeah, so we have this practice in Raj Yoga of drishti. Right? Understanding the power of how energy is transmitted through the eyes. So the soul is communicating through the eyes. So you can just give drishti to your water for a second. It's this tradition that used to be there of like saying grace. Yeah? Why was that tradition there? It's to send that vibration of gratitude, of positive energy to your food, especially to water, before you consume it. Right? So as you can see, I don't think I need to kind of explain each one individually, but I do really love the fact that each of the religions, the crystals that are formed are distinct, but they're all equally beautiful. Right? So it's not that one is better than the other, but when it's embraced or practiced in its true spirit, in its original spirit, then it has that beauty that's inherent within it. And the last slide. So some of you may know of this, but Dr. Emoto actually traveled to Madhuban, to Mount Abu, which is where the headquarters of the Brahma Kumaris is. I think it was in 2009. So it says it on the slide there, in 2009. And so Dali Janki, who was one of the former heads of the Brahma Kumaris, and she left her body, I think, 3 years ago, I want to say now, 3 years ago at the age of 104. So what Dr. Emoto did, so he traveled to Mount Abu as a guest of the Brahma Kumaris, and he wanted to do his research on water whilst he was there as well. So on the picture on the left, you have Dali Janki sitting, having early morning meditation. So he placed a glass of water in front of her while she was having meditation. And then he took that water back to Japan and froze it. So what you see is the contrast in the crystal formation before meditation and after meditation. So when he studied the water before and after, that's the change in the crystal formation that we see. So on the right, after meditation, you can see that it's more well formed, like beautiful patterns. So, and that's just the effect of thought on matter, basically. So that's why we speak of mind over matter, but it is a reality. So I believe that's my last slide. So I will pause there and just see if there's any questions. Otherwise, we will have a meditation to close. Any questions, or everyone, understands that they are a living magnet?
You mentioned about books on law of attraction. So I was wondering if there's any particular book you would recognize to read.
Well, I was mentioning that in the context of the title that we chose for the retreat. Yeah. So, but I think The Secret is the popular one. I've not read it myself, but that's the one that I'm aware of.
There are many times when we are in the middle of some very difficult situation, and during that time, we find, even though I am a meditator, but we find difficult to change our thoughts.
Yeah.
So, is there any suggestion or advice for doing that?
The only way that I've found, so the question for those online is, many times we face difficult situations, and even though we're a regular meditator, we find it difficult to change our thoughts. So in my experience, the only way that I can overcome the weak thoughts is by intentionally creating more powerful thoughts. So that's one of the reasons why in the study of Raj Yoga we have this this practice of spiritual study every morning, because that feeds my mind and intellect with, it gives me a collection of thoughts to play with that are either going to take my mind away from the weak or negative thoughts, or have the solution to the problem that I'm dwelling on. So that's the only way that I know of. And again, the thing to recognize is that only I can do that for myself. Right? Because no matter how well-meaning someone else is, whether they are a guru, a teacher, a father, a husband, whatever, they cannot get inside my head and fix things. Right? So I have to do that for myself. So people can give advice, but I have to do that in a way.
Sometimes creating positive thoughts can backfire because the speed of the negative thoughts is too fast. And so countering it with positive thoughts sometimes doesn't work. It just ends up pushing everything aside. So is there a way that we can put it down first?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So the question was, sometimes having positive thoughts can backfire because the speed of negative thoughts is very fast. Do all of you agree with that? Negative thoughts are very fast. Yeah, and that's one of the ways of recognizing that I'm having a negative thought, because when we have negative thoughts or base thoughts, the quantity of thoughts is very high. Right? There's volume and there's also velocity, right? But when I have positive thoughts, they're quality thoughts, and so they're fewer, right? Fewer thoughts, and the speed is slower. That's why sometimes you observe when you're in a very stressed state of mind, we also tend to have verbal diarrhea. Sometimes, like we talk too much because it's an outlet for the pressure in here. And what we're saying has no value, no meaning. It's just noise. Right? But when your thoughts are really powerful, as I said, it's quality thoughts. The speed of my thinking is slower, and it's very intentional. It's considered thoughts, right? So, how do you stop your mind from having that rush of negative thoughts? I would say one is, because your question was sometimes positive thoughts can backfire. In those kinds of situations, I would say find something to take your mind away from it altogether. So just press pause on the problem or the challenge or whatever. Go for a walk, listen to your favorite music, do an activity that you enjoy, whether it's cooking or gardening or something to take your mind off of it, because you're not in a constructive headspace, and then come back to it. Because I think that is, it's a very honest question. It's a reality that sometimes we have the right intention, that we want to counter a negative thought with a positive thought, but the negative thoughts are so dominant because of our subconscious recording, where we've entertained those kinds of thoughts in the past so much that they have so much power. So I need to take my mind away from that temporarily. Sometimes the way that some people do it is sleep.
I use a different method here. Whenever this happened to me, I just think these are the ghosts.
And they, like, ghosts cannot exist in our body. These cannot exist in my body. So I have to take it out. So whenever this happens, purposely, I think this is ghost. It does not exist. It wants to exist to my body. So I have to take it out every time. So I just take it out and just say stop, you can't, and then just leave. And I'm good.
Yeah. So until we reach that stage where, one of the things that we learn in the study of Raj Yoga as well is that we are not our minds. We are the master of our minds. Yeah. So if I'm of the belief that everything that my mind thinks is real, then I'm in trouble. Because most of what our minds think are very deceptive. Right? So when I understand that I am the soul, and I, the soul, am the master of my mind, my intellect and subconscious mind, then I have to take the reins of control in my hands. Yeah, so I have to actually exercise that authority over my mind. So what you're describing is kind of doing that in a way.
Even breathing exercise, when we breathe in, when we are in that kind of a state, when we concentrate on the breathing.
Yeah, that's right. So somebody said that practicing deep breathing or breathing exercises can help.
Just listening to the verse.
Just listening to
The verse.
the breath. Yeah, yeah, that's right. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, in many different forms of meditation practice, people have a focus on the breath, or a focus on a mantra, or a focus on something. But the only thing to be mindful of in that situation is not to become dependent on it. So understanding that I am the master of my mind is restoring that right relationship. So I am not my mind, I am the master of my mind.
Yes. You've given us examples. What are examples where thinking thoughts can change the crystals into a more harmonious form?
What are thoughts that can do that? Yeah. Well, that might be a good opportunity for us to close with some meditation. And
It shows in a way the power of the spirit and material.
yeah. So in essence, I think the types of thoughts that are going to create those beautiful crystals are thoughts of our original self. Right? So who am I? I am a being of peace. I am a being of love. I am a being of power. I am a pure soul. I am a wise soul. So when I create these types of thoughts, not merely as thoughts, but really with the feeling that that is who I am, then it is going to manifest.
Now, I come from Mauritius, and every year we have the Hindus in Mauritius. Every year we have the celebration with the walk and burning
Fire,
the fire. Do you have an explanation for that? How we can master the mind to come to that?
Yeah, so there's a question in the room about how there's this practice of people walking on hot coal or on fire, how they can master their mind to be able to do that. Well, firstly, I can't speak from experience because I've not done that, but I have seen that. So, and I truly believe that the power of the mind is underutilized by us. So not only are we sometimes misusing our mind, but we're also underutilizing it. So we're not harnessing the true power of our mind. So how they're doing it is basically by conquering their senses. Right? Because if there's boiling water in this glass and I touch it, then if I'm not in that state of inner power, then I'm going to be affected by that, right? But if I've actually trained, and they don't just walk like that, they actually train themselves over a period of time.
2 or 3 weeks ago, yes.
Yeah. So that is proof of the ability of the mind to conquer matter. But I'm not suggesting that you have to do that to demonstrate the power of your mind.
So does faith go into this? Faith is it?
Yeah, so like I used the word conviction a few times, right? So not just to make it a mental exercise of saying, I am a peaceful soul, I am a powerful soul. But conviction is when I actually feel that as well. So when my thoughts and my feelings are in harmony, then I've arrived. Right? But if I'm thinking something, my feeling doesn't match that, then I still need to close that gap.
Balance, how do we make sure that these thoughts don't need that, a person it's very powerful. So, these things are very,
Yes. Yeah.
how do you make sure it doesn't end up in a more negative or an ego?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the question was, how do you ensure that as you make your mind more powerful, you don't grow a big head, right? Like you don't become egotistical about it. I think it comes back to understanding who you are, who you truly are, and your motivation, right? If I'm wanting to develop the power of my mind to showcase certain abilities, then there's a selfish motive, right? And when there's a selfish motive, it's often connected back to one of the vices, one of which is ego. But if I'm developing the power of my mind and that is going to be expressed in a selfless way, then I don't have to worry about ego. So just be true to yourself, authentic to who you truly are. I am peace, I am love, I am power, because I am, not because I have to show that or prove anything. So, okay, so maybe we'll close with some meditation.
Suggest in silence, so you speak but without music, so that everyone can hear as well as your mind.
Okay, that's right. So I'll speak a few words to guide us on the meditation. So I sit upright. And I rest my gaze on the point of light in front of me. Soften the muscles around my eyes. I relax my shoulders. Relax my stomach. And for a few seconds, I just focus on my breathing. Breathing in and breathing out. I breathe at a pace that is comfortable for me. But I breathe deeply, feeling the oxygen entering my lungs. Oxygenating my brain. And awakening all the cells in my body. And when I feel my body settle into a state of relaxation, I bring my awareness to the center of my forehead. And I visualize a soft white star sitting in the center of my forehead, between my brows. This is the seat of I, the Sun. As I become aware of this vibration of light energy in the region of my forehead, I turn my attention inwards, reflecting on who I am, who I truly am. I'm not this body. I'm not the roles and responsibilities that I play. I am a being of light. And my essence is the energy of peace. And as I visualize this light in the center of my forehead, I feel, I experience that I am peace. And now as I breathe in and breathe out, I feel these waves of peace, these vibrations of peace, traveling throughout my body. And when I'm ready, I take my thoughts upwards in a direction beyond this physical earth, beyond the sun, the moon, the stars. And I visualize in my mind a dimension of golden red light. And at the highest point of this region of golden red light, I see with my mind's eye a beautiful, very subtle white stone. And I experience this white stone radiating towards me. Waves of love and peace. I am present in front of the divine, the Supreme Soul, the mother and father of I, the Soul. Just as a flower turns its face to the sun to fill itself with the energy of life, I am present in front of God's light, and allowing these rays of love and peace and God's benevolent energy to flow into my being. And as I visualize this, I experience the magnet of my mind becoming clean, becoming clear, and being charged with the power of pure light. And when I feel that the current of God's light has filled me, I gradually bring my consciousness back down from that home where the Supreme Soul resides. back down to this physical dimension. Back to the center of my forehead. And I become aware that I am recharged. I am full. And I am complete. When I'm ready, I open my eyes and bring my awareness, my attention back to the room around me.